right?
Okay, so you want me to go back to what I was saying? Is the challenge has always been for me, and I know that I just met you, Chandeep, but you're a friend of my brother here, and so I know you're already family, and this doesn't happen by accident. So I feel like I can almost speak for you in the same sense that, but I'll speak for myself. The challenges in my life are not ones of material or status or things. I love things. I love abundance. I love all these things. Who doesn't want to have all the things? But the challenges for me in life have always been attachment to those that I love, and dying to those ideas, because really when we are able to let go of those people is because we move into an eternal timeline rather than linear. I mean, it's as simple as that. You can't. I've not had many death experiences in my life. I really have not. I mean, like, I've not had friends die off near me. I haven't had family. My grandparents are gone now, but they lived until really late. And even when they went, they were in Argentina, so it was like it wasn't near me. And I had a friend die last year, one of my close friends, and I've never had an issue with the idea of death. I think I brought it really close to my challenges, which are my family. Like the one maybe I'm still working out the things is my mother, the one I love most. But it's the same thing, and it's the same thing that I always felt. Death always actually helped me get through relationships. Whenever I would finish a relationship, I loved every woman I was ever with, and the hardest ones I let go through the understanding of death, because the understanding I have of death is that we all reunite. So coming out of relationships, I was like, oh, I wish I could just not that I necessarily wanted to go back. It's just that I wish I could have a moment to really express to that person my mistakes and really show them for a second like what I really felt in my heart, so that they could be at peace with what had happened. I could be at peace with what happened. And when I couldn't get that moment, I solved it by saying, oh, well, eventually that moment will come, even in the afterlife, in the eternal. And that's brought me peace. So yeah, I think death is a concept that is only taught in one way, into the ground. And there's other deaths that we die every day to old ideas and old ways.
Well, thank you for starting out the show with that. That's a great start.
Light, starting off light.
Well, Pablo, not Pablo Carlos, would love it if you could introduce Pablo Carlos for us.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for, is it over 15 years, 19 years now?
Yeah, 19 years, bro.
About 19 years. And ever since we connected as brothers, it's always been real. It's been true work and brotherhood and holding each other accountable at the highest. What that means to me is that we haven't gotten along as being just human beings, and there's been times where we haven't liked each other. There's been times where we call each other out raw and call each other on our, obviously based on perception and things that we don't like about each other. And we always come to this place of acceptance. And that to me is brotherhood. And Pablo, I mean, I call you a brother. There's no need to emphasize that. We know this. And for the viewers, for those listening, watching, Pablo embodies the Shiva, Lord Shiva, the creator and the destroyer. I've never seen anyone create such beauty and magic out of nothing, and see it through full fruition to its full capacity, and then destroy it and move on to the next creation with such grace. And this segues into, Pablo's a maker. You are now founder of your second makerspace in Miami, Apiary, a designer and engineer by trade, a thinker, a researcher. Getting a little emotional. Just thinking about this intro, just because I look up to you so much, and I admire you. I have deep admiration for you as a friend, as a bro, and yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking this time and opening up and always making yourself available to step in and show up open-heartedly.
Thanks for having me, bro. And dude, I could try all day, and I couldn't get across the gratitude I have for you having you in my life, dude. Like, the beautiful thing about our relationship has always been a choice. And like my father taught me when I was young, he said, the relationships that are most valuable, they're not because they're the ones with the least amount of fights. And we've had very few, but they're the ones where what you do after the fight, you know? And I think the longest that we ever did not, like, get along because we got somewhere was that time in Machu Picchu for like an hour. That was the most. That was like our peak fight, you know? And it was all external stuff. It had nothing to do between us. It was really just external stuff, and it came between us, you know. And dude, I'm really happy to have you in my life because you represent a rock for me, you know, like a place of truth. I know that every time I come to you for anything, you reflect truth, nothing but truth to me, and you don't hold back, man. That's the core of friendship. That's the core of real friendship. That's the core of real family. That's the core of real love, you know. And I thank you for that, bro. It's always reflecting that to me, you know, like you're a beautiful person, dude, and I love you, and I love the abundance that's coming in your life, and I love that you're multiplying another version of you coming, man. That's the world needs that. So excited. I'm really excited for that guy. Sorry, I'm having like some call coming right now. I don't know if you guys still hear me.
Yeah, we could hear you.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, the image is frozen.
Let me see if I love this image.
Yeah, and as we continue to the love fest, we get to the intention as to why we're here. You know, Shandeep and I started these conversations pretty much when the whole illusion of the virus was unfolding, and the name of it is Through the Fire. And Through the Fire is really, we've all had moments. Yeah, it is. Props to Muji. We've all had moments in our life where we've been through these really pivotal points of shift, of transformation, and we've had to step through the fire. And whether it's an external situation or circumstance that has forced us here, or something that we chose, or something, you know, just happened. And there's that before, there's that during, being in the fire, getting burnt, you know, the part of us that's burning away, that's dying. And then there's the rebirth coming on through the other side. And it's these 3 points that we're excited to learn and share, because people walk around, I don't like to use the word people, but yeah, people walk around ignorantly, as if we don't suffer, as if we don't feel pain, as if life is always this, you know, joy and always joy, which it is. But there's also what's joyous about it is the fact that we are human beings that have desires, and that puts us in a position where we are suffering. So being true to our feeling and sensations, that we don't feel good all the time, this is relevant. And the question for you is, the reason why we thought about bringing you on the show, and the connections to what the topics that you and I have talked about, such as sovereignty and freedom. You know, you have gone through, I believe, 20 plus years of research on going through the protocols and procedures to become a sovereign citizen, to become free from a system or a program or a construct, which not only has the physical material implementations of going through these different steps, but also has a spiritual connotation that comes along with it. Otherwise, the whole shit is just, it's what it is, right? So I'm really excited to hear about, you know, what was that point where you said, I'm going to free myself, I'm going to become sovereign, because it's 20 years and you've dedicated your life to this work. You've had a lot of predictions in the years that we've known each other that have unraveled in front of our eyes precisely. So predictions or theories, and then, you know, you've been arrested multiple times. You've been cornered and put in undisclosed locations and sat down by the FBI. You've been questioned if you were holding hostages, all because you chose to be free, and not just chose from the psyche inward, but act on it. So, I mean, you know, we only have so much time to go through this, to go through 20 years, but I want to hear, like, what was that point, you know, that you said, I'm going to do this. You did it, and now you're living it.
Well, I think it all started for, like many people, it started, I know the
Pablo Carlos,
majority of the,
before we go into how it got started, it would be great if you can talk about what is your interpretation of a sovereign citizen. Like, it would be great to start out with that, because there's a Wikipedia definition, but it would be, before we talk about get started, what is a sovereign citizen?
Okay, well, a sovereign citizen is a term that kind of is a little bit of a oxymoron in a way. They kind of oppose each other, because when you take citizenship, you give up a little bit of sovereignty. You do it in the collective sovereignty. And so there's different types of citizenship. There's the citizenship of the United States of America, the United States federal government, where you get the birth certificate and you are actually named as a vessel at sea, and you're treated under admiralty law and law of sea, or statutory law, which is the statute man on the land. And that is the way most people represent themselves, or they send a lawyer to represent themselves. And so, you know, there's cities of God and there's cities of men. And what I mean by that is when you look at our law, when you look at our law system in the founding articles, there's common law and there's admiralty law. You know, admiralty could be broken up into admiralty and statutory, but those are the types of the commerce of the person. So you go into our Bill of Rights and you see that on Amendment 4, it says the people have the right to be secure in their persons, papers, houses, and effects. So it shows you person is a thing, just like the papers and the houses and the effects, and the people have the right to be secure in those things. So what's the person? The person is the persona name, the all capital letter name that we use in order to do business with each other, whether or not we know if we're men of God. Like, for instance, Pablo is my co-trustee in my private, irrevocable, express, foreign, non-domestic trust. And he basically has right over everything that I have as much as I do. And I put that in the trust of him and I, because I know that he's a man of God. And so that I know that he answers to that law. Doesn't need somebody to tell him statutory law, admiralty law, has a moral compass. The reason for any systems that we're in today that seem like they're taking away our sovereignty is because man has lost his moral compass. He lost it a while back. So the great American experiment is creating a system where they could bring everybody under one umbrella to be the example for the world, because what we're going to see is the whole world move into constitutions that are like ours. And today, actually, China just announced that. So China today, the Federal Republic of China was just created. They moved away from they announced a constitution will be coming that will be like ours. And they moved away and called out the Communist Party as being dictators that have no right to rule. So that just happened today. But the future will move into this model, because this model, what it is a model where both the person and the people exist. So the person is a persona. And we see that in the Spanish language, persona. It's a mask. And we put it on in order to do commerce and interconnect with each other, whether or not we know if we're moral or not, whether or not we need to get policed or not, you know? And like I said, there's cities of God and there's cities of men, in the sense that one is under laws made by men, statutory law, admiralty law, that goes left, right, and cities that are made by God. So nation and country are the nation is the natal, the mother side. The country is the father, the pater, and the contract. Those are the same words. But before you can get to all these things, you have to stand up inside. So Pablo was talking about that it has a spiritual connotation. I'll go further, and I know he agrees that it has a spiritual center, because before you can have an outer standing, you have to have an inner standing. You have to stand up inside. And I think a lot of the people on the earth are already way along on the path of standing up inwardly. They might not have the papers right, they might not have done those things, but I think the world is moving more in unison than we think. Many people have stood up inside a long time ago. Even these people rioting outside right now who have never taken the time to read the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, have never taken the time to actually learn our American English language, the grammar that goes with it, the definitions of the words and their etymological root. But they have a feeling, and they're outside protesting because they have that feeling. And all people, all roads lead back to God, lead back to sovereignty, full consciousness. You could take those roads by going downward and using your ra, your sine wave, your ra that we send out, and you can send it into the earth, and you can have a really difficult experience trying to break the earth open and go downward and go into the red of the earth, where the idea of the devil is. Or you get ra and go up. You go up to the heavens, to the waters above, to the blue skies, to the Christ light, the white light. And either of those are the polar opposites, the red and the blue, right? But when you come into consciousness of the full thing, you have to really come back to center of heart, and you do that with love, because you can't let any of the things we see in the outer dictate the things that are inward. It's not the circumstances that materialize in the world. It's a state of being that materializes. We might look in the outer world and we might say, well, I see this and I see that, and it's dark. And that's true. We see these all the time. I'm not going to sit here and deny that there's not darkness out there that I've seen, for sure. But that doesn't change where the creation center is. The creation center is inside of us. And as a whole, we're collectively creating all the time. And so we bounce inside of our caves of our head between the two left and right brain, where we have that logic and that stored memory on the left, and we have that creation and fluidity on the right. And in between, there's a literal cave. There's a space in between where all the thoughts cross. And in that cave is where we share, through telepathy, all of the thoughts that are collective in the world. And when the canonized texts speak of like evil begetting evil, is because we're allowing those thoughts that are inward to come outward. So, sovereignty starts at the inside and in the inner standing. But in order to get there to that inner standing and then really bring it to an outer standing, we have to start from the outward and go in and master our actions. And I think most of us, I know Pablo for sure is a master of his actions. Chandeep, I just met you and I can tell that you're a master of your actions. And I know for sure Pablo is a master of his words, and he's mastering more every day, just like all of us. And then once you master the word, then you master the thought. So you root out the evil, and that's what's happening on the earth right now. The evil is being rooted out from the cave of our brains, so that it won't manifest anymore. The angels are the demons. They're the one and the same. They play the same role. They're both bringing man to God. The way of center heart is the where we cross, where the inner standing, where it all meets, where you say, okay, there is no enemy, because that's the truth, there is no enemy. And so what's the path to sovereignty? First, you stand up inside, and you do this on a feeling, because part of our male and female natures that are inside are these things. The female nature is the material world, just where the feeling comes from. And the father nature is the pattern that we strive for. That's why we look up So once man starts to set his pattern, and he has to do this in a methodical way, he has to select the trivium, he has to select the language to know definitions, rules, grammars, and he has to be able to um, think and logic and reason in that language, and he has to be able to express in that language, following the same rules and the definitions, so that we can build that first triangle. This is why the Jay-Z holds this up like this, because he's building a triangle. Even though that guy's working from the darkest places out, he's still a Mason. Masonry is happening everywhere all the time. So along my experience, I went probably from the year of 2001, because that was when my naivety stopped. I was a very naive being my whole life, in the happy bliss, like never thinking that my sovereignty was ever being called into question. Like I never experienced anything going against me. All the things that someone could consider going against me, I was happy to do. I was happy to go to college. I was happy to get good grades. I was happy to do the whole thing. When I came out of college and everybody was following this path, I wanted something different. And when I saw the towers fall, which was like a couple of months after I came out of school, that was the first time I looked upon my government and I said, what is happening here? I studied engineering and I was like, towers don't fall like that, And I think that was the first, one of the largest Masonic rituals to have occurred. They were literally taking the polar opposites, busting them down, and they erected one building, right? So it was a big Masonic ritual in front of the world, showing us that our polarity was going away. Two towers were coming down, polarity, and the one was being erected. So, of course, I didn't know this in the beginning, for the first, 9-10 years, I saw it as an enemy. I really believed that the enemy was exterior, and I went down this path, and it was a very, things were building, and I was learning knowledge, but it was slow, because I always kept the enemy outside of myself.
All right, I'm going to interrupt for a little bit, because I feel like I'm away from this, and I want to get back to this. You said sovereignty starts with a feeling. Right? And that really resonated with me. You said sovereignty starts with a feeling. What did that feeling look like for you, and what happened in your life? Right? It sounds like it was the towers falling, but what did that feeling represent to you that's carried from 2001 to where we are?
Yeah, I mean, I could say it started with my parents. At some point, for instance, I went through all of high school, college, and I was like, I wasn't ready to go to college at 18. I could have gone at 23. That's when my real desire to learn started, at 23. It's more of a natural time. I think the pace that they got us going to college at 18 is because they want to mold us, and they know that we're not ready to mold ourselves. So they mold us before we're ready to mold ourselves. So I was already resisting through college, but when I got out of college, and I didn't want to go down certain roads to just make $100,000 at a job that I knew had none of my interest in, and I saw that that it started upsetting my parents. I was confronted with the people that I love, that I love most, that I always wanted to do good for, now going against me, and not because of a specific idea, just going against me because I wasn't filling out their choices. It wasn't bad choices I was making. It was just not their choices. And so I could say that it started there. My sovereignty started there with people I love most. I could say then it started later with the government, just piercing the veil, starting to pierce the veil, and seeing what is happening. What is this thing that cops are beating up on people and killing them, and no one's going to jail, no one's even getting fired. What is that? And what's with this army over in Iraq, and they're all mercenaries. They're this corporate army, and they seem to just be destroying the history over there. I remember after we attacked Iraq, the first things that I heard on the radio was all their history and museums being destroyed and pillaged. And I was like, this is what the fuck is happening there. So I started looking there, and I felt like the the evil was outside of me, but for the first time I could feel it. You know, I was moving out of my naive stance and saying, wow, there's something really, really fucking going on. And so I started looking. I believed very much that there was a good guy and a bad guy. I didn't understand the concepts of good and evil being both God. You know, God gives free will to all the children on earth. All the men and women on earth are God's children. There's not one left out. Whether or not men and women recognize God, that's a different thing. And that's again the idea of the devil. The idea of devil is that he doesn't want to recognize God, and it's not that God is the devil is in opposition to God. The devil is in opposition to Christ, and by Christ I mean Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, all the different people that have enlightened themselves. And by devil I mean anybody who's gone the other way. They're just two opposing sign forces, the two snakes, the Kundalini snakes. They go up and they go down. And so constantly in our systems to shoot the snake down, you know, the story of opening presents at Christmas, you know, it's, you know, condoms, you know, spilling the seed, you know, like I never was with condoms. That was just something natural that never felt right to me. I didn't know why. And I came to understand why much later, you know. For a lot of my years, I looked at porn, and then and I realized one day, I'm like, why? This shit is free. Why is it so fucking free? Why is it so prevalent? Why is it everywhere? What's going on here, you know? And I remember I even worked for Obama when he came to be, you know, and I campaigned for him, and I moved a lot of people into the Democratic Party, and then I realized it was in the second term of Obama starting, I realized, wow, this guy is not doing anything what he said. And that is the day, I think 2010, 2011, where I stopped paying taxes. That was the day where I realized I'm done. And it was a feeling. I did it based on a feeling. I knew that the capital letter name, I heard about the capital letter name like September 12th, 2001, okay? So when the towers fell, I was in Boston. I was visiting my sister and my brother that were going to BC and BU. And I was about to head to Europe and spend some time there, take a break after college. And I couldn't leave because they didn't open the airports for weeks. So I shadowed my sister in school, and we're going to one of our classes, and I'm just doodling, and I don't even remember what kind of class it was. She says, today we're going to learn about the all capital letter name, which you think is your name is not your name. And I was like, what? And my sister writing all that stuff down. And, you know, the internet wasn't developed back then, so it was finding tough. It was really tough. But then again, it all happens completely in the story of my journey. It all happens in perfect alignment with how much I opened my heart. The more I open my heart, the more the doors open. That is the door opener. The door opener is the heart opener. It's the same. It's the main door. It's what takes the polarities of the upper chakras and the lower chakras and the doorways in the middle. It's in the middle. It's literally in the middle. It's every Masonic temple is the two pillars in the front and the doors in the middle always, because the polarities are there, and that's the brain hemispheres. Polarities are there, and to find the Christliness, to find the eternal life, because there is eternal life. That's a real thing. You have to find the center. So, you know, in 2010, 2011, I came across the knowledge that I knew about the letter name. I didn't know how to correct my status. I was searching. I had not put anything on paper yet. I just knew that name wasn't me. I could see that it was outside of our American English grammar and rules. You know, even though I was largely into math, which is God's language, I was not into English, and I had to study a lot in order to just get above the 500 in order to get to Georgia Tech, because they needed a 500 minimum in the English, and I had a 780 in math on the SAT, and I couldn't get in because I couldn't get over 500. So around that time, 2011, 2012, I came across the knowledge that like our income tax wasn't what everybody thought. It wasn't what was building the infrastructures of our nation, the roads, or any of that stuff. It was literally 52% was going to wars, old wars, new wars, current wars, and the other 48% was going to the Vatican, like straight to the Vatican, because it was a payback of the bailout that the English gave us back in 1929. I didn't know that then, but I came to discover that. So I stopped paying taxes, and when the IRS called me, well, first that year when I stopped paying taxes, I had filed a paper, the voluntary paper, right? Because it's voluntary. And I told them how much I owed. I owed like maybe $1,000. And so when I decided not to pay, they went into my account and took it. And I knew there was something there, you know, always going with feeling, always going with brain, trying to find and always getting the answers if I came to the center. And so I knew, all right, I'm going to try it again next year. And this year I'm not even going to file anything. And then they couldn't go into the account anymore. And they couldn't take anything because I had not volunteered to them what income was, which is a very misunderstood word. Income and wages are very different. Income is the profit made off of the dollar, which is their vehicle. They created the dollar that we use today. So put it in an interest-bearing account, and it makes money there by itself. Even if it's a couple pennies, that gives just the account. That's income. What you put forward in a dollar itself makes money back for you. And we think that it's wages, and through our own ignorance, that's how we create our slavery. All of our slavery is through ignorance. That's why slavery and sovereign both start with have the same power. You could see it as slavery, or you could see it as sovereignty. It all depends on how you look at it. It's the same one system, the same one that enslaves us, frees us, and it comes up to really how you see it. So by the year they couldn't touch anything, the next year I started getting phone calls. I didn't shy away. I told them, that's not my name. My name is Pablo Carlos. I'm of the family Riccati. You know, if you can address me as such, with capital P and capital C, lowercase the rest, of the family Riccati, or write Riccati, comma, Pablo Carlos, because I put my family first, not last. And I'll listen to anything you got to say. But they never addressed me any better that way. Never. And so I started seeing it. I said, they can't touch me, you know? So I got more and more brave, and I kept going until about, I think it was 2015, 16 is when I really started hitting the books, and I started coming upon the language they were treating us under, and I started coming upon the realization that I didn't know how to read. I'd gone to college, graduated with an engineering degree in mechanical engineering, and I didn't know how to read. Like, what do I mean by that? How to read a language, like a proper language. I was reading Babel. That's what the Tower of Babel is in the Bible. It's the Tower of babbling, blah, 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 because we're mixing languages. And so I said, okay, I'm going to apply myself, and I'm going to learn the American English language, the grammar, the definitions. I learned about etymology, which is the root definition of the word when it was created. You know, like people say all the time, oh, black people, white people, or they'll say, oh, the black pharaohs of Egypt. And it's like, okay, well, this person's either ignorant or lying to me, because there were no black pharaohs. Black wasn't used to describe people until the 1700s. Wasn't used to describe people until the 1700s, so how could there be black pharaohs? There were Moorish pharaohs, there were Hebrew pharaohs, there were dark skinned, whatever you want to call them, but they were tribes. They knew their tribes, they knew their people. Black, white, yellow, brown, these are all colorable terms that they use in order to put us under color of law and color of money. You know, our currency looks like money, acts like money, it's an agreed upon value, but it is not money. Money is moon, mun, and ray, gold, silver and gold. Those are the two, that's money by definition in American English languages. Silver and gold. And that's a positive currency, and it's put all over the earth. Like God sprinkled it everywhere so everybody will have abundance. So what do? They basically, when you come in, they ask your parents to give them your birthright, and your parents do it not knowing, because we're generations deep into the ignorance, generations deep. And so the parents give the birthright over, and by the time you turn 18, that birthright will now pass to the state if you don't go claim it for yourself, if you don't go correct thing.
Yeah, and Pete, when you say the parents give over the birthright, can you give just because I know what you mean, but can we keep it so in a way that that people get it? Like, how do you give over the birthright?
Okay, so prior to hospitals, which is a word very close to hospice, where people go to die, okay? prior to hospitals, prior to the birth certificate, which the birth certificate, the driver's license, the income tax, the Social Security, the U.S. citizenship, all came in the 30s. Came after Franklin Roosevelt created the New Deal. This was after the Great Depression, which the banks caused in order to create this new way. So what happens? Before then, people would give record to whatever their holy book was, whatever their canonized text was, whatever their God was. They give record amongst their family. They keep record amongst their family and their tribe. In their tribe, they'd have paper somewhere that say, oh, Pablo Carlos was born. And he's of the family Ricardi, and he's also of the family Granero, and he's also of the family Rodriguez, and he's also of the family Guerra, and he's of all these families, all the ones that are connected in all the family names, you know? And they're all of the family because they know there's one family all the way up at the top, and that's God, the one that is conscious of all. They know that family. Family is an idea, is an understanding of order. And this is what men have the most trouble with, order. Order. And we have to find our order, our place in the order amongst the celestial bodies. If not, we will never become a star. Never. No one gets to become a star if you don't know your place in the order. And order doesn't mean like whoever's in front of me is greater and whoever's behind me is lesser. That's the idea they sold us. So your parents go to the hospital, and the United States being the place that is the most coveted hospital, you know, the one that's like, oh, that's the promised land. But this system is in every country, every contract, okay, around the world, and they all are run by the United States Security and Exchange Commission. They all, like, so I was born in the Republic of Argentina, and the Republic of Argentina, republic means it represents people. There's also Argentina, just like there is the United States of the Republic of the United States of America, and there's also the United States. One is the contract, one is the nation. It's the mother being proposed to by the father. So when I was born there, they're in the hospital, and the hospital being a corporation run by the state. The nurse comes up to the mother and says, can you give us record of the birth? You know, can you write here like the name? And so my parents write the name saying, well, everybody's doing it. You know, this is the way. It's not a mandatory thing. They cannot mandate you to do this. They cannot mandate you to do this. There's many instances, I'm sure we all have friends where you could look around and the parents took the child home for a few days, a few weeks before they filled out the birth certificate. Okay, you don't have to do it in the hospital. But what do? They found that as the entry point. The entry point in the moment of joy. Who's gonna like sit there and, you know, question that moment? They're like in the joy of the birth of the child, you know. So 2 births are happening that day. There's the birth, B-I-R-T-H, in our American English language. That means the child coming through the waters of the woman. And then there's the B-E-R-T-H, which is also in our language, and that is the vessel being born at sea, of the citizenship, on the citizenship. Okay, that's the vessel, that's the all caps, that's the entity. Both are being born at the same time. So if you look at your birth certificates, you'll see the capital letter name, straw man. That's considered the straw man because he looks like a man, is like the straw man is like, and by the way, the Wizard of Oz, the whole movie is the allegory of what I talk about, okay? So if you want to really like a good starting point is go to the allegory, study the allegory. It's taught in universities. The Wizard of Oz was made by the people that created this system in order to tell us, because they always got to tell us. They follow free will and the understanding of free will, and they follow the rules of God. They do not enslave us. They give us the truth as they give us the contract. It's our own ignorance that keeps us in the slavery. It's our own ignorance, because as you start chopping down the walls, what is given to you is honor. When the FBI took me, they honored me. And the next day we had coffee together. So they interrogated me for 4 hours. They want to make sure that I wasn't giving this knowledge to bad people, that I wasn't like fostering fugitives, like people that just want to use this knowledge and do sneaky shit. And once they saw that I was a good guy, they're like, oh, and they told me I didn't break any rules. I was completely in my right. And I was traveling with no plates on my vehicle, okay? This is how I was operating. And the next day we went and got coffee with my partner because they wanted to know more. I mean, there's people in the system that are ignorant to this thing themselves.
That's it.
Multiplying the thing, not knowing. So So the mother and the father, they give record to the hospital. And so they say Pablo Carlos is the name of the child, and you'll see it on every birth certificate. Pablo Carlos, the name that is specific to that child, is in an uppercase, lowercase fashion, written properly. And then what you see is the family name written in all caps, and that becomes what the last name, the surname, the surety name, the name of the bond and surety. And from there we move forward, and that's how the debt system is created. Because that day, what the parents are doing is saying, we're gonna raise our child in this country, in this contract, and we're gonna put our energies here in this contract.
What's the difference between, you mentioned they don't have to do it right there, they could do it later. What's the difference between doing it at the hospital versus doing it later? Is there a difference?
No, what I'm saying is that you don't have to do it at all. The point there was that you don't have to do it at all. So you can just say, I'll do that later, and take the paper home and never fill it out. And you can see it's not an enemy. It's not an enemy. Very important to be understood. It's not an enemy. It's only been an enemy because we've been in ignorance of it. Like I still have the all caps, Pablo Carlos Riccardi, Pablo Riccardi, Pablo C. Riccardi. If you notice on your business cards, on your credit cards, you might have your first name and your last, and then you have your first name, middle, and last. So you have the first and the initial and then last. Each one of those is a different persona, and you have the right to be secure in those personas. It's Amendment number 4 of the Bill of Rights, which is number 6, which is now number 4, after they amended the Constitution. So it's not a bad thing. Those are commerce names. Those are agreements. So when the parent says, I'm gonna give you record, means I'm gonna raise the child here. I'm gonna put my energies and economy and everything into this economy, this contract. And so the state goes, great. When your child reaches 18, this surety bond is gonna mature, and we're gonna give them credit off of this surety bond. It comes from.
Bueno. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So wait,
have you ever thought of where our credit comes from? Have you ever given thought to why, when we turn 18, all of a sudden we have like 100 credit cards that are like, hey, sign with me? And what's happening in that thing when you sign up that paper? What's actually happening that gives you credit all of a sudden on the card? Because that's key to the understanding of this system. It's what's happening in that moment is that bond that your parents filled out in numerous type fashions. Okay, you could be birthed here, you could be naturalized here, you could be brought into a visa, you could be brought into just a driver's license. You could have just people giving you credit and you don't have any papers. It's the United Statuses of America. States mean status, and we are water, and we could take many different statuses. We could be liquid, we could be solid, we could be vapor. So that's what's meant, United Statuses of America. Why America? Because there's North, Central, and South. Our founding articles, were not founded in just the territory of the United States, and they do not pertain to just the territory of the United States. They pertain to all of the Americas. Those 3 papers are for all of the Americas.
So you turn 18, and at this age, you're getting credit. And you said something which was very interesting. You said, we don't have to go along, but we go anyway. But at 18, something happens. And this is, I feel like it would be great to understand just what you did when you understood that too. What were the
I didn't do actions until way later, right? So at 18, like everybody else, because it was part of my experience, part of my learning. At 18, like everybody else, I started getting credit cards sent to me, And later, in hindsight, when I learned the whole thing, what was happening was that the credit card companies saw that the surety bond that my parents started with the state, with the corporate state, as a person, to give me a person name rather than a people name. Because people means man, like in Genesis. Person is persona, the mask that the man wears, and he can wear many masks. And he has a right to, and he has a right to be secure in those masks. So when that mask of Pablo Carlos Riccardi matured at 18, that surety bond, that surname matured at 18, all the cards started coming to me because they went to the state first. So they're like, they go to the state, they see a list every year of the ones that are maturing, and they say, okay, Pablo matured this year. The surety bond for Pablo Carlos Riccardi matured this year. Oh, I'm Discover. I'm going to go to Pablo. State, can I go to Pablo and ask him to handle the value that's in his surety bond? And the state says, yeah, sure, you can go to Pablo, but he has to give you right to handle that, and you have to follow these certain rules. And so all of this business is created through the ignorance. So the credit card companies come to you and they say, hey, we see that your surety bond has matured. You know, they're not telling you this, but this is what's happening. And can you give us right in order to manage the value that's on that surety bond? And we'll give it out to you in pieces as you need it. And as long as you pay it back, we'll give you more and more and more and more and more and more and more. This is how a person can build their credit lines to be millions of dollars, because in the surety bond, you have millions of dollars. Okay? So the gift of God is that God gives the earth and all the things upon it to man. So when you look at the total earth, all of the gold and the silver and the oil and the da-da-da and the food and everything that's on it and the land, chop that up by the amount of people, and that's what each people has. Okay? So the contracts are the guys that are aware of this, making contracts for people and saying, hey, you guys that aren't aware of this, we'll handle it for you. We'll give it back to you in pieces. And some contracts do it very nicely. You know, our country is the nicest of those contracts. The United States is the nicest of those contracts. They are actually the nicest because they're trying to get us to rise up, become aware of this, and handle our own contract. That's what the great experiment of the United States is. And you can see it on the back of the $1 bill, the one talisman that has not changed. On the left side, you have the pyramids of Egypt, with the eye of providence, God looking over all of it. It comes from the Moors, the Hebrews. And on the right side, you have the eagle, the United States seal. So under the pyramid, it says the great seal of, and on the great seal, and then on the right side where the eagle says of the United States, and between it says one, and then it has artwork that encompasses both seals into one new seal. So it's basically an experiment where it says, all right, we're going to create this constitution, this way of life, where if somebody wants to live in a tree and not do any of this civilized stuff, not get debt, credit, not do any of this, they can live in a tree if they want to. They can live how they want on the land. But if a person wants to live in this civil idea, which is, comes from Rome, and even further back, then they can live in that way too. And what we're going to do is we're going to merge both polarities until they see that it's all God, it's all good, it's all God. So it's an experiment to one, it's bringing about the ending of slavery, because that's what's happening this year. And slavery is ending this year. And I knew that for a few years now, and I've said it to people for years now, and they look at me kind of crazy, but that's what's happening on this continent. The first time that slavery existed on this continent was 1619. And so 400 years is how long slavery takes to begin and end in any system of slavery. And so it ended last year.
Sorry, Pablo.
Go ahead.
So I would love for you to share. Obviously, you've gone through great extent to do the due diligence and take charge of your actions in paper and correct the language and document it accordingly. You've gotten arrested many times for driving with a privately owned license plate. And every time you've gotten arrested, there's been no record of your arrest and you've walked in and right out. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I'd never been arrested before until my first arrest came about 4.5 years ago. And it was an unplanned arrest, because the other three I pretty much planned. I poked the bear. because I knew that I was at a point where I had to poke the bear and really see the system, because I was ready to make moves, and I needed a surety that it was what I felt it was, and I'd never been to jail before, you know? So, but the first one came out of just a moment where I had really long hair. I cut my hair that same day, which has to do with the energy that we hold in our hair. And I was a little off that day. So like when a police officer jumped out of like from behind a tree and yelled at a lady in front of me for getting into the turning lane too early, and he was coming to do it to me, and I still had the idea of enemy out there, and I took him to be like the whole thing, the whole enemy. And I went to jail, you know, and I went to jail, and they told me that I had to do anger management. And in anger management class, I realized that I did, in fact, have anger. So I let that be the beginning of the real. I mean, it was powerful, man. I was like rolling my eyes at the teacher, you know, and then all of a sudden she passes out this thing, and it says, "These are some ways that we can build anger, and we don't know we're building it." And I was like, wow, it was a really good way that I was building anger, thinking that there was a place in my mind that I can keep stuff that I wasn't comfortable with, and I could just not express it, and it wouldn't affect me. And there's no such place. So right there is where like the enemy idea started going away. So that was 4.5 years ago, and it happened at the same time that I had the woman that I love in my life. She was there at the same time, because that's what was happening in my life. I was starting to rise in love for the first time in my life. So what happened? A couple of years passed. I got really onto the study. I took a vow of celibacy. I've been celibate for 4.5 years now, because there's really no one else I want to be with other than her, right? And she left being scared for the same way I was scared of things. So about 3 years in, almost to the exact day of 18 years past 2001, well, a little bit before 18 years, I get arrested, because at this point, this was back in, let's say 2016, I stopped carrying the license. I knew that it was not me, and I didn't want to have it on me. So I stopped carrying it. I stopped paying the tags on the vehicle. I didn't know how to properly make a proper plate for travel instead of driving, which driving is a term of commerce. So anytime you're driving, or you're a driver, or there's whole language. I mean, like really the language is the place first. That's how you make the sword. You take the sovereignty of S, that is the S, and you take the word, and you put it together, and you make the sword. And so, the second arrest, arrest number 2, 3, and 4 came within a time span of about 6 months. So the first one was I was on a motorcycle, and I was traveling. I was not doing any commerce, and I had an expired tag. So the police pulls me over, and they say, "Hey, license and registration." And I go, "For what?" And they go, "You're driving." And I say, "I'm not driving." They go, "What do you mean? You're on the motorcycle." And I say, "I'm traveling." Now, the police officers, the policy enforcers, that's where that word comes from. They are the policy enforcers of the personas, of the contracts. So most of them are in ignorance of this knowledge. So they will arrest you and do what they think is right, and you will spend the night in jail. That's what I did. So I told the guy, he's like, "Are you failing to present yourself? Like, are you failing to present?" I was like, "No, my name is Pablo Carlos." Put out my hand, like, "Nice to meet you." And he was like, "What? Give me the license or you're going to jail." And I go, "I don't have a license because I'm not doing commerce." And he's like, "All right, you're going to jail." And he started getting real rough, and his partner started getting real rough. I said, "Dude, I'm not gonna resist. You're doing what you believe is right, and I'm gonna do what I believe is right." And then I sat in the car with the guys for a couple of hours as they listened to me to everything that like the same stuff I'm telling you guys here. And one of them was like having nervous tics, like this was like melting his brain. And the other one was like, "I've heard of some of this stuff, keep going." So I went to jail, spent the night in jail. And as I was going through jail, one of the corrections officers there, just like the first time 3 years prior, he looks at me and he says, "What are you doing here? You don't seem like you belong here." I said, "I don't." "What were you doing?" I said, "I was traveling." And he goes, "Did you show him a driver's license?" I said, "No." And he goes, "Okay, did you tell him the UCC code?" Which is the Uniform Commercial Code. And I'll talk about that. I don't want to sidetrack, but I'll talk about that. And I said, "Yeah, I told him the UCC code." And he goes, "Wow. You told him you were traveling?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, man, these Miami cops are doing whatever they want. And, they forced the name on me to be a credit guard.
This was another police officer that was at,
This
there
was
was,
a corrections officer inside the jail, so when you go through the jail system, the circus of the jail system, you get put through different sections of the jail. And one of them is where they do a psych evaluation on you, and they ask you 100 of the most personal questions. And I just I don't answer any of them. I don't even take the blood pressure thing. I refused the whole name the whole time I was in there, and they didn't touch me the whole time. Like everything else, everybody else was thinking that they had to do. I didn't do any of it. I just sat in jail. Like they would call Riccati, and I just sit there. Riccati, that's you. And I'm like, no, that's not me. My name is Pablo Carlos. You want to address me as Pablo Carlos, I'll get up. If you want to say Pablo Carlos is the Riccati family, oh, this guy, I think. But hey, they couldn't touch me. And by the time, okay, so the corrections officer asked me that, and then he goes, wait, do you have the license plate on there? And I said, yeah. And he goes, dude, you got to take that license plate off. You're acting like you're doing commerce. It's a commerce plate under the all caps Pablo Riccati, but you're not showing a license. So you're kind of in the middle. And like, wow, crazy. I was talking to the insurance company, and they were telling me to take the plates off if I put the insurance in a different way. Wow, okay, I'm going to do that. So I experienced the court the very next morning because they hold you in jail all night. They don't let you sleep. And then they put you through the jail, the court in the morning, whereas the judge is up on the screen. He's coming through the TV screen. He's not even in the state, which shows you right there. It's not a people court. It's business happening in another state, and he's there. So I come into the thing, they call, and I'm resisting every time they call the name, right? And I'm making the corrections officers call me Pablo Carlos in order to make me move. And so all the way up until I'm about to go through the door to see the judge, and I make them call me Pablo Carlos. So I move and I get into there, and the judge says, good morning, Mr. Riccati. How are you? And I say, I'm not Mr. and I'm not Riccati. And he's like, you're not Mr. Why not? And I go, because that's a ranking in the military. And it is Mr. and Miss and Mrs. This is all how they put us into status. And he's like, oh, okay. I goes, well, Pablo Carlos Riccati. I go, no, I'm not Riccati. And he goes, you're not Riccati. And I told him, I'm not in the military for the mystery, And he goes, you're not Riccati. And I said, no. He says, what's your name? And I go, Pablo Carlos. And he goes, yeah, Riccati. And I go, no, Riccati's not my name. He goes, what's Riccati? Well, that's my family name. If you want to address me as Pablo Carlos of the Riccati family, or if you want to put Riccati, Pablo Carlos in uppercase, lowercase, then you're talking to me, but that's not my name. My name's Pablo Carlos. And the guy's like, oh. And he looks at my paper for a while, and he reads what the police had put in the report. And he's like, oh, Pablo, you seem to know your stuff, why don't we set a court date and you come back and you plead not guilty? And I go, no. And he goes, why not? And I go, because it's not my court. Court of commerce. It's not a court of the people. So he's like, oh, okay. And the judge's language, the judge's body language will go from being forward and attacking to back to back to back until they lose all the way back. And that's something that I learned afterwards, but I remember from my experiences. They hold perfect to that. The judges know what's going on. So so then he's like, oh, okay. So he keeps talking, and he's like, all right, well, you don't have any priors, meaning that already my arrest. And he's like, you don't have any priors, so, you could just come back and you could do the blah, blah, blah personal program. All I heard was personal program. And, you won't get any points or you won't get anything, da-da-da. And I said, no. And he goes, why not? And I said, I told you I'm not a person. And he goes, oh, you're not a person. What are you? And I said, I'm a people. And he goes all the way back. And he's like, oh, what nation? And I go, I'm a Moorish American man of the Bible. And he was like, all the way back. He looks at my paper and he's like, all right, Pablo Carlos, have a good day. And he just lets me out. That was it. And so so that next day, I took the plates off my vehicles. I created my own plates that said private, not for hire, traveler. And I stated the UCC code. The UCC is this book I have right here. This is the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code. Look at that thing, okay? And there's part right here which will tell you how to list things because it gives you remedy in the world of commerce. So that book is the commercial code for the world doing commerce, no matter what country, what contract you have. And in that book is remedy for you to place all your things as consumer goods rather than motor vehicles, which have a classification that there's a driver behind it, which gives status, you know? It's all language. It's all language. It's why the police officer says, you know how fast you were driving? And you're like, why was he driving that fast? And they're like, done, status. He says he's a driver. He was driving. Now I have jurisdiction over him. Now I can just adjudicate and give the ticket. And if he fights me, I'll just take him to jail. You know? So it's all about status. Understanding means to stand under. If you're understanding, that means somebody's standing overstanding. So never answer that to a cop. He'll tell you, hey, you know, I really like chocolate. You understand? And you think he's asking you, like, do you understand that I like chocolate? And no, he's making a statement, I like chocolate. And then he's asking you, do you understand? And as soon as you say, yeah, I understand. You like chocolate, I guess. I don't know. I understand. And you're giving him status that he stands over you. And that's it. You're in his jurisdiction. If he says, hey, where do you live? And you say, well, I live over here at 300, da-da-da. That's it. He's got status because we live in our body. We live in our body. That's where the soul lives. And so there's all language. You can stop it with language first. You can immediately be sovereign the day you decide to correct your language. That's why I say the actions, most of us have already corrected our actions. The next step is to correct our words. Once we correct our words, we start seeing it already in the outer, just starting to reflect. The freedom starts to reflect, and then we go all the way in and we root out all the darkness inside until all the thorns are gone. You know, the thing on Jesus' head is the thorns. They place it on him. He didn't place it on himself. They place it on him. They place all the thorns on his head, you know. And those are the thorns of thought inside the cave when we create the thoughts. So so the next day I take off the plates. I create my own plates, and I start traveling around, you know. And I'm with these plates for 2-3 months, and I'm having police officers pull up behind me. They see the plates. They don't do anything. I'm taking pictures in the rearview mirror, and I'm showing my friends. My friends are like, wow, dude. And I'm starting to wake some of the people up, you know, I'm getting them to see what I'm doing. And then the next thing that happens is I'm traveling through Wynwood and place in Miami here. And so a police officer pulls up behind me, sees the plates, doesn't pull me over, drives to the side of me, and sees me through the window, and it's the same, one of the same cops, now with a different partner that had arrested me the first time. So he's like, this guy again, now he's got these plates, what's going on, you know? And they had forced a name on me on that arrest on the motorcycle, which was the second arrest, the first one of me poking. They had forced a name through a credit card. They did not have a driver's license on me, okay? So they forced it through a credit card. They found in a register, Pablo Riccardi of a credit card, lined up with Pablo Riccardi of a driver's license. So they forced it on me. Now this guy pulls me over because he's like, the same guy, you know? And he calls his partner who comes with another partner. So now there's 2 cop cars, 4 cops, 2 of the original ones that got me on the first time, and 2 new ones. And they come into the window right away, and they're like, dude, I thought we talked about this. And by this time now, I got a safe in the car where I put all my credit cards, all my things, so they got no identifier on me except the VIN number. And this I know, and this is what I'm poking the bear. This is why I'm like, eventually I'm going to get pulled over, and I'm going to learn the truth about the VIN number and who it's registered to. And I knew that was the last identifier. So they're there for like a good hour trying to find my name in their arrest records. And they find me, you know, because they were the same cops that arrested me the first time. So they find me and they force the name again. They start creating all this thing. But in their report, they have to put that I have the plate. That's part of what they see, you know. And they couldn't get me out of the vehicle. They could not take me. And after about an hour and a half, 2 hours, after they went to the VIN number, they realized that the only right that they had was to take the vehicle. Now, this is where the cop lies on me out of his ignorance because he wanted to win over me. And he says, get out of the car, we're arresting you. You know, and get out of the car, we are arresting you. And what he really should have said was, get out of the car or we're arresting you, because they had the right to take the vehicle because it's registered under that capital letter name, which the United States created under their trust. Okay, and this is the important part to understand, is that there's always a trust going on, and if it's not with God, it's with men. So the vehicle was registered under Pablo Carlos Riccardi, which was a name they created, and I have right to in the sense of a beneficial equitable title holder or a authorized representative, but I am not the trustee of that. I am the grantor. My parents were the original grantor, and then it passed to me when I was 18, but they don't make me aware that I'm the grantor either. So I'm 2 points of the triangle. They're the trustee, I'm the grantor and the beneficiary, but they don't tell me that I'm the grantor. They show me I'm the beneficiary, and then they're the trustee. So like I could take apart this triangle right away by taking out these 2 bottom points. They fall flat on their face. That's exactly what I did. But this day, they asked me, they asked me to step out of the vehicle, and I don't step out of the vehicle and say, okay, we're arresting you. So they arrested me, and when I read my paper when I'm in jail, I'm like, oh, they got me because I wouldn't get out of the vehicle. This is how they wrote it. They wrote it properly on the paper, So I go through the jail again. I learn a few more things. I get to the judge in the next morning, and the judge this time doesn't even look at me, doesn't even give me his eyes once. He reads the paper. He sees it on there. It says that I was telling them that I was traveling and that I had this plate that said, private not-for-hire traveler, UCC code 9-109. And he didn't even look at me. All I heard was release on recognizance, and they let me out. Neither of those also on my record. So 3 arrests at that point, none of them on my record. So now I'm feeling really confident. I'm feeling like, wow, I figured this thing out. And I had been studying with a house called the House of Reawakening Minds in Delaware. And they were a Moorish group which had brought me to all the final knowledge. And so after this, I felt really confident to go proclaim myself as a people through their tribe. And this is what they were doing. They were teaching people the knowledge and helping them to get free through establishing themselves as part of the tribe. Because this is how you have strength when you create a tribe. You can do the sovereignty on yourself just through the word, but you can start building nations within nations, cities within cities, cities within nations. You can start having all of the rights by proclaiming your tribe. So they had done it, and I was ready to do it with them. And I remember I was always telling my mother all these things, and my mother was like super scared, but at the same time, she knew that I was standing up for things that were sacred. And so she listened. My father thought it was all against him, because really that's what I showed for many years. I showed that I thought the whole capital letter name was an enemy, and I came to understand that it's not an enemy; it's just a tool. And if you see it properly, you can use it as opposed to letting it use you. And so my mother asked me, she's like, oh, I know this is all right, and you've been telling me for years, and you're gonna go do this through that tribal state, but like, do you even know anybody in your life, like real life, that has done this? And can you reach out to them? Can you talk to them directly? So I said, yeah, there is this one guy, my friend Craig from Jamaica, who I once made a post about the nation and the country being 2 different things. And he was like, he just made a comment on my post. He was like, oh, you seem to know what I know, So I reached out to Craig, and he's like, it's funny that you're reaching out now. Yes, let's get together. Can I bring a friend with me? So they show up at Apiary at my shop. And at that point, which was about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I had the walls of my office, big marker boards, and I had on one side all the language of the person, and on the other side all the language of the people. And I was filling in the gaps by putting everything aligned. And if I was missing a piece over here, I was like, there's got to be a piece over there, So I was filling the whole thing out. I had all marked, all in color, all organized. I had all the books. I had where the language was, the American Sign written form of American, the language they treat us in, all capital letter. I had the dictionary for that, which is Black Law's Dictionary. I had the, the American English Dictionary. I had the Constitution. I read and reread and reread. I had been already once through the Bible, going through it again. I was on a level of Masonic knowledge that was already beyond apprenticeship. I was already into like the 3rd degree, and really that's the strongest of levels to pass. After that, it's degrees of actually finding order and helping man to build. Like the first 3 degrees are the initiation part, where you learn the knowledge, and then after that you start finding your order of where you help man to discover, and always by leading to water, never by forcing them to drink. So I've been at the 3rd degree for a while now, and so my friend Craig brought over his friend Anu, who had changed his name already, and I knew what I was going to change my name to, because I found my Moorish roots right away. I was like, I had a feeling that I was Moorish. And so I asked my mother, and I asked my mother because I looked at her name. Her name is Maria del Carmen. And I had found through the language that del was a conjunction word of del, of El. And I had seen through the Moorish teachings that there was 3 families of Moors: El, Bey, and Ali. This is why Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, turned his name. You know, this is why Mos Def, the rapper, went to Yasin Bey. This is why Beyonce has Beyonce. It's why Jay-Z created Rock Nation, a nation. He B-E-A, 2 Moorish sisters, I, Bey, Beethoven. This is why now the knowledge is coming out that Beethoven was a Moor. So Anu shows up and he sees I'm running the Moorish flag, which is called the cherry tree. He sees that I have the knowledge on the walls. He sees that I have the books, and he's astounded. He's like, "Who taught you all this?" You know, and I tell him, like, I taught myself, man. And he was like, a good hour, I was telling him everything, and he was just, we had this moment of, you know, we spent the first day, we spent like 6 hours together, and then he started opening the doors of knowledge to me, and it started with those 2 questions: who's the enemy, and do you know that there's value in the contract, and do you want to go for it? You know, and I told him, no, I don't want to go for it. And he goes, good, because we're not concerned with going for it. That's a waste of time. We just want to find our sovereignty and our freedom. And he goes, who's the enemy? And I told him, no, there is no enemy. So then he started opening the doors, you know. So he pointed me to how to go file the papers through the recorder. I went and I proclaimed the freedom myself, and that's what it is. So when you read the founding documents, which are 3 things. One is the Declaration of Independence, right? So what is the nation is the individual. That's the idea of America, that the sovereignty would be brought down to an individual level. It no longer was just in the hands of the kings. So when the nation declares its sovereignty from the king, that is the same first paper you got to do, is declare your sovereignty from the king. Second is the Constitution, or the Bill of Rights, before the Constitution comes, because we were a confederacy for 12 years before we were a constitution. So then comes the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights points to the 10 Commandments. It's the same thing. It's, you know, you have your right of existence, you have a right to all the things, and as long as you don't impose your shit on anybody else and take away their rights, we're all good. And that's the 10 Commandments. And so you go and you declare that. You declare your rights. And you could do it just by pointing to these 3 founding documents, but you could point to any other constitution in the world that's had it. You could point to the Bible, you could point to the rights of indigenous people, you could point to the Zodiacal Constitution, you could point to so many things. And then you tell them what constitutes you. And so I pointed to the 3 founding articles because to me they're the most beautiful papers I've ever written. And they're almost flawless. There's a few pieces of grammar in there where it's been taken advantage on by people that wanted to control, but that's being corrected right now through proper grammar. But they're the most beautiful papers. They're the papers that will free the world. And like I said, all the nations of the world will create papers modeled off of ours. So what I did next, with the help of Anu, he helped me to file under his tribe, and I immediately became a brother. And I filed my paperwork. I went and I did it myself. And he warned me. He said, as soon as you do this, dude, get prepared. The FBI is going to show up on you. You know, took me 3-4 months, he said, you know, before they showed up on me. Well, it took about 4 weeks and they showed up on me. They showed up with about 12 cop cars, SWAT, all to my business. The Miami-Dade police grabbed me out of my business, you know, and I volunteered myself to it. You know, I had magnetic locks on the door, which they couldn't have even broken. They couldn't even got through. And I'm looking at them through the glass, the hurricane-proof glass, and I'm like, I'm not going to resist this. I'm going to go for it. I want to see what happens, you know? So I opened the door. I let them take me. They didn't let me present myself. By that point, I already had identification. I had already rescinded the driver's license. So I went and I paid like a ticket that was on the driver's license. And as soon as I got the driver's license back, I was like, cool, now you can have it back. I rescinded it. And the people there were like, what? And I'd never done this before. You're never going to drive before? I said, again? I said, no, I'm never going to drive again. I'm going to travel. I've never done this before. I said, go talk to your supervisor. And the supervisor comes out and she's like, yeah. She goes in 2 seconds, she gives you a letter, and they wish you luck. They say, thank you very much, and they wish you luck. And they give you this beautiful letter where you're like, what the fuck? So the honor starts coming. It's not that, it's just, you really start seeing that the system is not against you. They're honoring you. When you step into honor, they step into honor. That's how it works. So at that point, I had already rescinded driver's license. I had not done the plates yet. I had not put the proper plates on my vehicle that pointed to a trust. And so I'll explain what the trust is, because it's the most important thing for operating in this world as a people. But I'll finish the story of the fourth arrest, which was the FBI coming to get me. So the FBI comes to get me. The Miami-Dade police actually grabbed me out of the building. And all swatted up, just 12 cars, 20 guys. I don't know what it was. It was fucking nuts. All my members at the shop are like, what the fuck is going on? Everybody got interrogated. They searched my whole place. They took my rifle off the wall. They confiscated things, all this kind of stuff. And then they hand me over to an FBI agent, which is like plainly dressed, but with all the SWAT gear on top, And they take me to a private center here nearby, where it was not like the normal place. And none of the cops are telling me why they grabbed me, because they don't know. Their ignorance is let to live. That's part of the free will that the most honorable of men give to each other, even if you are in ignorance. They do not force you to walk. They do not. And that's what I'm learning now. I'm learning this is what is going to allow me to enter the higher degrees of masonry, is that I'm learning to not force anybody to walk. It's not what is meant to be done. I had this feeling, this is the last of the thorns that I'm letting go, because it's man has to be led to water, but he cannot be forced to drink. And if you force him to drink, you're not doing anything for that man. You're not doing anything for that man, because the understanding does not ever come. If you're constantly giving that man to eat, the understanding never comes. He never seeks how to make his own meal. So, the FBI sat me down for about 4 hours, 5 hours. They interrogated me. They started with, oh, you're just a person of interest. I was like, what did I do? What laws did I break? You didn't break any laws. You didn't do anything wrong. You're a person of interest, and we'd like to talk to you, and it's all voluntary. You don't have to talk to us. You fill out this paperwork right here. I'm like, no, I'm not filling out anything. They're like, okay, you have the right not to fill out anything. They're like, would you like to talk to us? You don't have to. They repeated it multiple times. I said, yeah. They said, okay, good. They took off my cuffs. We sit back. We sat across from each other like gentlemen in the desk. At one point I put my feet up because we got into the conversation so nicely. And I explained to them everything that I knew. And this FBI guy didn't know half the things I knew, So he was at one point curious, and he also knew what he had the right to do and not to do. And when I saw that they had nothing on me, I started asking questions. It was like, all right, it became a thing where I think at one point I literally said, like, for every question you ask me, I'm going to ask you a question back. We're going to share. And he was like, all right, I'm down with that. So we started sharing a lot of knowledge to each other. And then he said, all right, this is awesome. You're a good guy. I can see you're not a threat. You're not harboring fugitives. This is not a school where you're teaching, I go, dude, I teach people if they see what's going on. But let me tell you, man, so many people don't see what's going on, nor do they want to apply themselves or have discipline for it, So he's like, no, we get that. And I see you're a good guy, so we're not. No problem. Thank you for talking to us today. Come on. I got to put the cuffs on. You got to go to jail. And I'm like, what? He's like, why am I going to jail? And he goes, the judge will tell you that, And there was nothing the judge told me, nothing. Like, I actually, on the fourth go-around, I got bailed out of jail. It was my brother hearing the whole thing being called by all my members at the shop and saying, well, it's the FBI. Oh, my God, I got to go get my brother out of jail. And I told my brother 100 times, I said, don't come bail me, because all it is that it just makes another paperwork that I have to say that I'm that name in order to get out, so don't come bail me out. Just let me go through the 24 hours, But I was in the jail, and I didn't know who was bailing me out. And I thought, well, maybe it's my Moorish brother for some reason bailing me out, or you know what? I just felt it, and I said, okay, I'll take the bail. And I went out. So I didn't see the judge that morning. I saw the judge about 6 weeks later at a court date that was set, right? So when I go to the court, well, first, in that same week, the FBI officer is like, this has been a very interesting talk. Could I call you later this week, and can we have coffee and an interview with me and my partner? I said, sure, man. I went and I had coffee with them like 3 days later, and we sat and we talked for like 4 hours. And they told me about Moorish people that knew the knowledge that were doing very dirty things. They were sitting on property, trying to take things from people. And I understood that that's how some people operated. They're called the dirty Moors. And my brother Anu had told me, yeah, some people operate in that fashion, you know? And so these guys were like, oh, you know, we'd like to get you to like inform for us. And you can basically say you're working for the FBI, you know, and they try to like make it all magical, like, oh, you can't really say you're working for the FBI, but it's like you're working for the FBI. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? And I was like, no, it's cool, man. I'll tell you guys, I'm an honest guy. Like, if I see, I get it, man. I'll tell you if I see something. Like, no, but like, we want to compensate you. You know, we wouldn't imagine you do this for free, and we'll compensate you well. And I'm like, no, I don't want it. And they're like, why not? Why would you want money? And I'm like, because that puts me under your jurisdiction. I'm not a fool. And they look at each other like, and get them, you know? So then they're like, all right, well, think about it, you know? Think about it. And I was like, well, dude, we'll call you in a couple of weeks. Just think about it. I'm like, dude, my morals aren't going to change in a couple of weeks. So,
wow, dude.
So yeah, I left that day and they said, well, last thing, you know, just make sure you don't tell anybody. I'm like, no. People ask. I tell them everything. I don't hold truth back, you know? So they were like upset, but you know, they were nice guys. They helped me get my rifle back, things that they had confiscated. And I still got Glenn's number in my phone, you know.
Can we get him on the line? Can we get him on the line?
Let's call him up.
Yeah, right. Wow, dude. I don't know where we are with time, but I think we're gonna need a part 2, 3, and 5.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. This is. I mean,
yeah.
I've never heard about any of this before, and this is the first time ever encountering anything related to this topic. But I'm very intrigued, and I've got a speeding ticket laying on my desk, so I don't know what I can do about that right now. But
you can do something. I can show you something really powerful with a letter you do in a minute, and you can get rid of that speeding ticket.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So let me see if I got one around here. Well, I'm not print it out, but I'll tell you how it goes. Right. There's a language. Everything starts with language. I mean, first is before you put things on paper, because paper is the last step, man. It's the last step. Don't be concerned with like putting it on paper. You could learn the word, and you could already be activating your sovereignty. You know, I got pulled over a couple times where they were like, "Oh, you have an expired tag," and they're like, "Okay." I'm like, "Okay," and they're like, "Well, you need to go fix that." And I said, "How am I supposed to know that?" And they're like, "Because everybody goes and does it." And I go, "Well, nobody told me I had to do it." And they're like, "Yeah, but everybody goes to the thing." And I said, "Okay, well, where's the place?" And they're like, "Give me identification." So I grabbed the Bible, and inside the first page of the Bible is my name. So I go, "Here, I'm right here on the first page." And the guy was like, "Okay," he took it as identification, you know? And then he's like, "Well, dude, you just got to go to the thing." And I go, "Okay, man, but where's the thing? Where's the address?" And he didn't know. He had no answer for me. So he's like, he just out of frustration, he's like, just get out of here. And he just let me go, you know? And so there's language to it. And that's what you gotta understand first. And that's that, you know, Sandeep, before we got on this recording, you and I were talking about the trivium. The trivium is the first place you got to build. You got to build a language, know the grammar, know the rules, know the etymological root definitions of the words. Think in rhetoric and think in that language, logic and reason in that language, and then have rhetoric expressed in that language. When you do that, you build your first piece of the temple, your spearhead, actually, that gets you through all the bullshit. And you can then start actually laying bricks down, because we're in a world where a lot of us have come to the understanding that there are some fucking things going on, and we've all been pulling truths everywhere. And we got bricks of truth. We're like, oh, this is definitely true, and this is definitely true. But we're not putting those bricks down to create the temple, because we're like, well, how do I know absolutely that this is true? How do I know that? You know? And the way that you know that is true is by creating the trivium first. You have to know a language in and out. You know, I love the American English language. It is the language of angels. English, angels, same word. And so it is the language where the world is synchronizing to. It is the universe that brings down the Tower of Babel, babbling. And I like it because It's the language that is spoken here on the land inside the Republic of the United States of America, which is all of the Americas. And it is the one that drives the common law. And it is the one that is what was used to write our Constitution and founding articles, founding papers. So, and it is the one that is in the King James Bible. So grab yourself the founding articles. Grab yourself an American English Dictionary of Noah Webster of 1828. Grab yourself a King James Bible. And right there, you got the freedom. Right there, you got the freedom. Because the Bible, and I know people are going to be scared to the Bible, you know, because they think, oh, religion is all corrupt. Yes and no. What's the word religion? The word religion means to realign. The same consonants. And that's how you see the sameness of word.
Yeah, I love to keep this conversation going
so,
as long.
Leave it there.
I just got a boogie, so we'll probably like edit this part out, just where I come in. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, let's definitely do a part 2 and dive into some more stuff, because I feel this is just like
more.
Yeah.
Amor.
Awesome, bro. Amor. Wow, dude, thank you for sharing, man.